I've got something a little bit different for you on this video today. I did a lot of videos about how to solve limits in all these different ways, different kinds of limits, trig limits. There were the three main methods to solve limits, then there were some miscellaneous limits, and it kind of feels like it can get all jumbled and confusing. So in this video, I'm going to give you a framework that you can use to solve just about every limit problem that you'll see. 95 to 99% of limit problems, if you use this framework and you follow it to the letter, you should be good to go. And it ties in all of that information that we've learned so far. So let's dive right in. I made this flowchart for y'all to really spell out this framework that I made. And you can use this framework to really solve like 95% of the limit problems. Like it really can get you there almost every time. So the first thing we want to look at, is it a piecewise limit, right? And over all of these little sections, I have individual videos where I cover them all in detail. So we're just going to briefly touch on them here and kind of tie everything together. So again, first, is it a piecewise limit? If it is, are you finding the limit at a juncture? And now again, if you forgot what that is, you can look back at one of my earlier videos. If you are finding the limit at a juncture, you identify the segments for the left-hand limit and the right-hand limit, and you use the solve the limits analytically method to solve those two limits. If you are not solving the limit at a juncture, you just find the correct segment and then you use the analytic method to solve the limit. Now, if it is not a piecewise limit that you're looking at, you have to ask, is it a trig limit? And if it is, you should be able to identify those formulas immediately, and you can just apply the appropriate formula and solve. And once again, if you forgot what those formula looks like or forgot how to apply them, just look back at my earlier videos. So if it is not a piecewise limit, and if it is not a trig limit, you go straight to solving limits analytically. Now remember, I'm not going to go over this in detail again, but just to briefly touch on it, solving limits analytically, you have direct substitution, that you just try to plug a in for x, and if that doesn't work, you have cancellation, where you try to factor the numerator and the denominator, and then cancel out the common factor, and then plug in a. And if that doesn't work, you try rationalization, where you multiply by the conjugate over the conjugate, and you simplify the numerator, not the denominator, and then you cancel out what you can, and then you go back to direct substitution, where you plug in a for x. And again, that's briefly solving limits analytically. If you want more details, just check out that video. And so this is kind of the overall framework, right? So first thing you look at is it a piecewise limit? If it is it at a juncture? If it's a piecewise limit, when you're solving the limit at a juncture, you know how to do that. Left-hand limit, right-hand limit, boom, solving limits analytically. If it's not at a juncture, well then it's basically just a normal limit. So you go right into solving the limit analytically. And if it's not a piecewise limit, is it a trig limit? We know what those look like. We know how to solve those. If it's not piecewise, if it's not trig, it's just a straight up normal vanilla limit. You go right into solving limits analytically. And now I want to caveat this a bit. There might be times where your professor specifically tells you to use the table method, right? And if you are told to use a table method, you have to use a table method. But if you're not told to use a table method, solve it analytically, right? That's the easiest way to do it, and it gets you there, again, like 95 to 99% of the time. So this limit framework, if you memorize this and you apply these steps, you're going to be able to solve just about every limit problem there is. And that's all I got for limit framework. Just try applying it to a couple of different problems and you'll see that it gets you to the answer just about every single time. And if you enjoyed this video and if you learned something, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will keep the math content coming.